Okay, so as far as notes, I have my outline with where I need to flip to the different slides for my visual aids and the direct quotes highlighted. Due to some technical errors, I will need to show you my slides by holding them up, unfortunately. Hopefully by the final version I'm able to acquire the right equipment to show this better. So, question here is, how do we get employers' attention when we submit a resume? What do they want to see? Excuse me. So today I want to inform you about the elements that employers are looking for in a resume. Most of us will have to make a resume one time, or at least one time, maybe multiple times throughout our careers. And nobody wants to put effort towards a document that's just going to get thrown away and get no attention. So in the past 3 years, I've submitted resumes for at least 5 jobs, and during that time, I did not get any calls back on those resumes. So I've got some reflection about that here a little bit later. The research I'm presenting today has several ideas to get your resume the attention it deserves and hopefully provide you with career opportunities. So first of all, it helps to understand what a resume is. So a resume, what is a resume? To start, it's also important to understand what it's not. So according to Resume Genius, in their article, How to Write a Resume, there's 3 things that it is not. It is not a log of your job history. It's not a summary of skills, and it is not a guarantee that you're going to get the job. So now that we understand what it's not, let's move on to what it is. So according to myfuture.com, in their article, Creating Your Resume, the resume is your first impression on a future employer, and if done properly, will help you get a foot in the door. And according to going back to Resume Genius, in their article, How to Write a Resume, the resume is an advertisement and you are the product. Your goal is to get hiring managers to buy into what you're selling, which means giving you an interview. So you want to promote yourself, market yourself, sell yourself in your resume. You're trying to get them to buy you, in a sense. Now that we've covered a little bit about the basics, let's go on to formatting. There are several key factors that can determine if your resume gets employers' attention for 2 seconds or 10 minutes. So according to Allison Doyle in How to Create a Professional Resume, her article, How to Create a Professional Resume, an unprofessional resume, one that's difficult to read, confusing, covered in errors, or unrelated to the job the person is applying for, will get tossed in the trash right away. We don't want that. So here's some pointers in how to avoid that. First of all, be clear, concise, and legible. Don't use fonts that are too complicated and are difficult to read, and stick to 10 to 12 point font size. Your heading, titles, and name can be larger and bold if you like. Just make sure that with all of the formatting and all of the sections that you are consistent in what you're doing. 1/2 inch to 1 inch margins are acceptable. 2 pages max for your entire resume. They really prefer 1 page. And it should be focused and not highlight things that don't relate to the job, or the job you're applying for. First of all, as the previous slide said, proofread, 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 and then do it again, and have somebody else do it too. You can never get a second chance to make your first impression. If you have spelling errors, they are not going to take your resume seriously. Additionally, make sure in the header somewhere it's clear what your name is, what your address is, what your phone number is, what your email address is, and the phone number should be one that you will actually answer, and an email address that is appropriate for an employer to be calling you back on. So, according to Erin Greenwald in her article, 43 resume tips that will help to get you hired. You should also make sure that your best experiences and accomplishments are visible on the top third of your resume. That's the section the hiring manager is going to see first, and what will serve as a hook for someone to keep on reading. So now that we've delved a little bit into basics and reasons why employers may be turned away from our resumes, we want to look and see what can help set yours apart from the crowd. So what else should we do with our resume? According to Wikipedia, a resume is a marketing tool in which the content should be adapted to suit each individual job application or applications aimed at a particular industry. The Wikipedia page that came from was just titled resume. So even though that's Wikipedia, I did find some other sources that agree with, that are in support what Wikipedia says. One of which is Susan Heathfield. In her article, "The Resume is Your First View of a Job Candidate," and she states that savvy candidates customize their resume and cover letter to help you, the potential employer, quickly determine that they are qualified for your job opening. So, the experts seem to agree that customization may be a key element in developing your resume. So, let's look into this a little bit more. According to According to Heather Heumann, in her article, 4 Things Employers Look For in Resumes, from the website Glassdoor.com. Each time you apply for a job, carefully dissect the job posting, create a list of skills, knowledge, and experience required for the position that match your experience, and then after you've created that list, identify the strongest matches. These will be the keywords that you'll use throughout your resume. So, along with this, as you're customizing your resumes for certain jobs, you should start to develop a master list. That way, as you make more resumes, you can just kind of copy paste the details that you want to keep for each individual posting, rather than starting over every time. So, additionally, wording on your resume is important. A 2014 study by career resource and job listing site Career Builder found that many employers prioritize the same soft skills in the employees. That is according to Catherine Paljug in her article, "The Personality Traits That Will Get You Hired," in Business News Daily. Excuse me. So some examples of soft skills that relate to what she's talking to, and this slide doesn't show up well, the words are written down here, include multitasker, strategist, decider, cautious, independent thinker, team player, and cultural fit. And then additionally, when you're speaking of achievements on your resume, you want to use certain kinds of verbs called accomplishment verbs. So some examples of accomplishment verbs are accelerated, achieved, expanded, influenced, suggested, rescued, solved, maintained, generated, things like this. Some words to avoid that will turn off employers: go-getter, think outside the box; synergy, thought leadership; value add, results driven; self-motivated; detail oriented. So now that we've reviewed the basics, the format, and key items that employers do and don't want, you should be more prepared to develop a resume that gets you results. So customizing your resume to fit the criteria a potential employer is looking for, along with solid word choices and careful proofreading of format, spelling, and grammar, are key in getting interviewed from submitted resumes. So earlier I mentioned not getting calls back on resume submissions, and based upon the research, I realized several mistakes that I made. Firstly, I did not customize my resume for any of the potential employers, and that would include the objective statement on my resume. It was merely a placeholder. It had absolutely no value for the job I was applying for. And the research is showing that an objective statement, unless it is explaining why you're doing a major shift in careers, is an objective statement is really not necessary anymore. My resume also did not include any of the accomplishment verbs, and it actually contains some of the words that the research says to avoid. And my resume did not advertise or promote me. It was only reporting about me. Additionally, it had 25 years worth of work history. I should condense that to only include my relevant professional experience geared towards the job that I'm applying for. So my first job as a cashier has absolutely no value on my resume. And by remembering these suggestions overall, and learning from my mistakes, I hope that you can develop a solid resume to acquire the dream job that you've been searching for.